from the Salvation Army National Headquarters, this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley. We're broadcasting from our illustrious studios here at National Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. Going around the table here to my left, we have our editorial director.
Greetings. It's so good to be here, be a part of this. Thank you. Jeff McDonald.
And across from me is our assistant to the editorial director.
Hi, my name is Michele Katsaris. I'm the assistant to the editorial director.
And over to my right is our wonderful producer. You can shout. Oh, you got a microphone.
I have a microphone.
Oh, somebody put a microphone on our producer.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth and I produce the podcast.
So she's working all the mixing and everything behind the scene, and she directs us, and we just kind of get ushered into her space here. And we're exploring a lot of different things today in our podcast. First off, we want to thank you for downloading and listening. We're finally on iTunes. That was a big deal.
Big accomplishment. Yeah.
It took us a little bit of time to get on Spotify, but I think we're there, and we're on SoundCloud and YouTube, and anywhere else are we kind of around?
That kind of covers it.
Did I cover all?
That's all the major platforms, yeah.
Right.
So we're rock and rolling.
And we're seeing a few downloads.
A few downloads, yeah. People are really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard from a couple of people.
Great.
And that's real good. So we thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll, however you're listening to us, and whatever it is you're doing. I mean, I listen to podcasts doing all kinds of things. And what about you, Mr. McDonald?
Definitely. I love to listen to podcasts when I'm traveling and on mass transit and in the backyard. And yeah, there's such a variety. It's so amazing.
It kind of blows my mind. I'm actually looking for a model railroading podcast. So if you guys know,
I haven't hit one yet.
Michele,
I know
you're
like
hip
10
on
of
this.
them. Yeah, top of my head.
What is it? What is it you're listening to? Like right away.
I listen to the same like 4 podcasts all the time. I really like the Lady Gang and Gals on the Go. Those are my top 2.
The Lady Gang. You talked a little bit about that one.
I talk about them all the time. They're hilarious.
And I'm not sure. I know my daughters listen to 2 women talking all the time or something. There was one podcast that I was faithful in listening to that I actually, because some things have been going on, I've kind of doing a little cancel culture sort of thing on it, because kind of boycotting it. So so I'm looking for some other podcasts. Anyways, well, podcasting is here, and so we are.
Yeah, effervescent Elizabeth Hanley, our producer, is helping us to get us broadcast on different venues, so we're appreciative of that.
Now, that's a big word.
Effervescent, yeah. But she is.
Yeah, that's very, very true. That's a good word.
That makes me feel very special. Thank you.
Well,
Oh
we're
my
all
golly.
about making everybody feel special. And in particular, we like to think of our podcast listeners as special. So we hope you're having a super fantastic day today. We're going to talk just about a few things in regards to our October issue of the War Cry. But here it is. We're recording on the last day of September of 2019. It's actually a little wet outside today.
For a change.
Kind of.
Welcome relief.
So you guys have been kind of zip zapping all over the place. What's been going on for you, Michele? What's check in with us? What's new?
Well, I swear October, I feel like October already passed because we've been focused on the November issue. And just with 2020 coming up, which sounds really far away, but it's not, you guys had talked about like getting things in shape and collecting a lot. That way we're not always scrambling at the last minute for stuff. So that's when I decided to just blast a bunch of people with potential interviews. And I had like 4 last week. Jeff and I have one this week. And then I've got a potential influencer in Australia who I'm just going to email her questions because those time zones do not line up. So, but yeah, so I've just been really trying to crank out a lot of interviews. That way we can kind of space them out. So, I mean, technically I have up till like May of 2020 all set.
That's awesome.
I know.
And we're really just kind of scratching the surface. We're grateful for a door that's opening for us in the entertainment industry. And you want to talk a little bit about what's happening with that?
Yeah. So we Colonel Foley had connections out in the West, and we were trying to get some sort of interview with someone who worked on the Mr. Rogers movie in November, and we were able to potentially, I don't want to jinx it, line up a few interviews with people who actually knew Mr. Rogers himself. So if we can get some of those out, that would be coming to a podcast near you.
We'll be featuring that primarily in our November podcast, and I'm really excited because some of our crew gets to go to a premiere locally of that movie, which already has a lot of Oscar buzz surrounding it. And we know Mr. Rogers was a friend of the Salvation Army, so we'll talk more about that next month. So you've been kind of working on that, and we are trying to make sure that we're having relevant content and trying to get a lot of different things in. We encourage our listeners, if you've got some ideas for articles or things related to themes or whatever, you can always drop us a line at thewarcry.org. Also, we're filling up, right, Elizabeth? We're filling up our new webpage.
Oh, it's filling.
It's filling.
It looks stellar. It's really fun up there.
And you're not subjective at all.
No, I'm totally neutral in the matter, but it's cool.
But you're looking specifically for a lot of different things. Tell us what you're looking for.
For the web?
Yeah.
Well, we're looking for articles. We like a little splash of poetry. We enjoy photography. But we're also looking for people to share the war cry.
This is true. That's
our new thing for the web.
Jeff and I were at the Dayton, Ohio Croc Center, and I think you took a picture of...
I did. In their main entrance, right there, they have a stunning magazine rack with the war cry and Peer presented prominently for anyone who enters, that they can pick a copy up.
That's so cool.
And we love that because that's what it's all about.
And I think the officer told me they unfortunately they don't get enough copies. So not that we're going to bump their subscription up.
Well, we do encourage people to be creative in their use of it. We know it's a challenge for Army officers on the front lines to do all their ministry obligations and also consider the war cry as part of their efforts. But the war cry is meant to be a marketing, a ministry tool for them to use in their various approaches. And there's creative ways of doing it, whether it's leaving it at the public library or at doctors' offices in the community or mailing it to their advisory board members or leaders in the community. It just makes inroads, and we are, after all, bringing the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ to people and the good work the Army's doing. So it is certainly a worthy effort in part of that ministry outreach.
Yeah, I think sometimes familiarity kind of breeds a little bit of contempt, and sometimes the war cry just kind of comes and goes, and people they may not give it much thought. And of course, we know with every issue, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I mean, we're working really hard. We'll probably be done in a couple of days with the November issue. Gives us a little breathing time, but we're already working on items for the Easter war cry. And believe it or not, I'm having correspondence with people right now on content for Christmas 2020, wow. Believe it or not.
That's very good.
There's a lot of things with it, and I know I may not look old enough, but I was around in the day when you were part of producing the war cry every week. You remember those days?
Yes, I do, actually.
And I went out and sold the war cry.
Yes.
On a bar route in Los Angeles and in front of a post office.
Isn't that remarkable? Yeah.
Yeah, we've come a long way with it. Another thing that you do is you handle all the digital media.
I do.
Social media posts
Yes.
for us. And it's interesting because you have, I don't know why you put me as an administrator, but I get to see the underbelly stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the comments. And I think, what's your most popular kind of feature that gets most attention?
Our fans love the history, so our Trivia Tuesdays and Flashback Fridays are our number one across the board.
So we're kind of looking for unique Salvation Army history kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
Captivated. Before we came online here, we were talking a little bit about, I'm putting together I just finished a history lecture of the history of holiness, in particular in the Salvation Army. Colonel Hinson and myself are traveling next month to Indonesia, and we're conducting a Bringle Institute in there for the officers and soldiers there. But I was doing a little bit of study, and Catherine and William Booth were vegetarians. And
That is so wild.
You didn't know that.
I didn't know that. That's such a fun fact.
Yeah, and Catherine Booth was really big with animal rights and those sorts of issues that are kind of prominent in today's society.
Yeah.
But back in the early days of our founders' lives, they were very concerned about how they ate, they took care of themselves, and taking care of God's creation around them. I thought that was kind of interesting. So you're open to getting little interesting tidbits from people.
I would love to get tidbits from people. It's fun to check out new sources of information, see what we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just digging around, and you've got tons of stuff, but. Well, I tell you, these guys, both Michele and Elizabeth, they give us a lot of energy, and they've got a lot of creativity and a lot of inspiration, and it makes us think a little bit about something in regards to generations. Make that little segue because we're talking in the October issue, which Michele kind of alludes to. It seems like such a long time ago. When we put these issues together, it's basically almost 2 months in advance before the due date, and we have to remind ourselves what did we write, what did we focus on. But the October issue, we were talking about life stages, and one of the things when it comes to life stages is the generational differences. And there's been more research since the 60s in helping to define the generations that have inhabited the earth over time. And one of my previous jobs, I was on the training school staff in the West, and I taught a class for 9 years called Emerging Trends. And one of our lectures was on generations and helping the cadets understand. And at one point, there's 5 living generations on planet Earth, and how we kind of live and work within those generations. There's an article here that's been given to us about millennials' adulthood facing adulthood versus other generations, and another article about older generations embracing technology. And I was just wondering if either Michele or Elizabeth, if you wanted to talk a little bit about that article on millennial adulthood versus other generations. Was there anything that kind of popped out to you on that?
Wait, when is this coming out?
Like in a week or so?
Oh, okay. Well, Mom, turn off the podcast right now. Okay.
My mom wouldn't know how to turn on the podcast right now.
Okay. No, I have. So for my mom's birthday, okay, you turned it off, right? Tracy? Turn it off. Okay. So for my mom's birthday, I am doing a birthday video.
Hold on. Your mom has not turned it off yet.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
But I'm doing a birthday video of all her family and friends, wishing her happy birthday. And I can just see the generational differences with some of my older aunts not being able to send me videos, or I literally made a joke being like, oh, do you have a flip phone? And she goes, yeah, I had a new one. And I was like, no, come on. So this one just made me laugh because I have a lot of the younger cousins and stuff quickly sending me things, doing little selfies on their phone real fast. And then my older aunts having to figure out how to send it through Facebook or on their flip phone, or asking their children to do it for them. So this one made me laugh.
So that kind of talks about the whole issue in regards to being a digital native.
Sure.
Versus being kind of like a digital alien, which is sort of what we are in a way.
Yeah.
How do you handle technology, Jeff?
I try not to get mad when my kids get exasperated with me when they instruct me how to do something, and it takes me a couple of gyrations to get there. Other than that, though, I mean, I certainly enjoy books on. I can get all these downloads from my library on digital books, which is remarkable. It's amazing.
Are you into audiobooks or?
I listen to audiobooks in the car. I'm actually listening to one on the Book of Acts at present. Faithfully at night, I'm listening to my podcasts at night before I go to bed. So I'm definitely attuned to it quite a bit.
That's so weird. I can't listen to audiobooks. I have to buy them. I have to have them in my hand.
Oh, the hard.
Yes, it's just
physical.
not the same. Are you the same way?
I've never, I guess, read/listened to an audiobook. I only listen to podcasts.
Well,
and if I read a book, I highlight my books. So,
I do too.
Yeah, I like to take notes in the margins.
So you guys don't use ebooks at all?
No, I think it's
can't.
distracting. I think I get
I can't do
distracted
it.
and want to do something else on there.
I'm already online so much.
I don't need any more of it.
I don't need more of it. I need
Right.
to actually take my eyes off of
that's
the
true,
screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because I have my foot in both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of prefer having a book, but with all my travel that I do related
Yeah.
to this job, it's just so much easier for me to have it right there. And I use the Kindle and I've got the app everywhere. But I like the feel and the smell and the whole marketing.
Magazines. I can't help but pick up a magazine and really try to read it cover to cover. It's just a habit. But some of it depends on your personal learning style. Some are kinetic in learning, some are audio, some are visual learners. So it's not so much age as what kind of learner are you?
What kind of advice would you guys, Elizabeth and Michele, what would you give to maybe the older generations in how to navigate through all of the stuff? Because for me, it's like I learn one process and then all of a sudden, boom, overnight, here's another iPhone being dropped and
The button's gone.
the button is gone,
Yeah.
or the dongle now needs to be replaced with something else.
Yeah.
I mean, what advice would you say? How can an older generation stay sane through all of this?
I would say don't be afraid to push buttons, because when I'm instructing my lovely mother, Christine, on how to use an iPhone, she's really afraid to do stuff because something bad might happen. Like, she doesn't want to hit something and have the phone. I don't even know what the phone would do. But I think you should just be willing to try.
It could send a social security card.
I guess so. But come on. I just believe you can and you will. Just play around on there. These little babies try to use these little iPhones now. They come out of the womb and they're like little iPhone techs. So just be afraid. Don't be afraid to try.
You don't have to keep up. I just recently got an iPhone X and I had an iPhone 6 before. And my iPhone works just as well as every other iPhone.
Oh, yeah.
It was just time for an upgrade, but you don't need the latest version, Grandma, all the time. Just stick to kind of learn what you know, get the foundations, and the iPhones aren't really changing. It is what it is. So you're going to text, you're going to have Wi-Fi, all those stuff stay the same. It doesn't matter what version iPhone you have.
Be confident in your skills.
Thing. Yeah.
We were talking a little bit before we started recording. Another unique thing that millennials have had more exposure to education earlier than previous generations.
Actually, the article says millennials are smarter.
Well,
So
more educated.
smarter.
Okay, you could be smart, but what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge?
Ooh. That's what makes you a different generation. Someone of our age would never say that.
Nope.
Well, it's interesting. Proverbs chapter 8 talks about the wisdom that founded the world, that preceded the world. That really the world grew out of wisdom to begin with.
Well, I think also wisdom comes when one of the commands in the 10 Commandments is to honor your mother and father. And when you pull back from that on a little bigger, broader picture, that whole idea of honoring or revering, not worshiping the past, but acknowledging the fact that there are people that have kind of gone the way before us, and we could learn something from the elderly or the aged. I mean, sometimes people are incredibly wise. My grandson has just turned 3, and he's memorizing scripture verses. And my daughter sent a video the other day where he's saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and he's 3 years old. When I was 3 years old, I didn't even know. I can't even know. So I mean, there's a whole thing about, yes, you're smarter. What's attributing to that, do you think? Why is the millennial generation a little smarter?
I have absolutely no idea.
Yes.
Oh my golly. Maybe we have more resources to find
access to
success.
information.
Yeah. Access to information. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key too.
Yeah.
Because and the availability, at least in North America,
Sure.
and in many other parts of the country, the world. I mean, I haven't traveled extensively over the world, but I've been to Europe and Africa and to parts of Asia, and everywhere I go, it doesn't matter how much money people have or don't have. People have cell phones everywhere. The deal in developing countries and third world countries is usually they don't have the data, so they don't have the bandwidth to be able to do all the things that we just automatically do. But the instant knowledge is just right there.
And also, isn't it this millennial generation is more exposed to travel?
Oh, yeah.
I think, and much more aware of the world as a global reality, with many cultures being a part of it, which was a focus of our article for the Millennial Pages in October, correct?
Yep. It was
And
about why millennials
that's a nice
travel.
segue.
Yeah.
Right?
Good
nice.
segue.
Nice
You
job,
covered
Jeff.
that.
Yeah.
That is a wise segue.
No, thank you. Well,
So now, our smart millennial, tell us a little bit about the center spread. What you did there, and
Yeah, so I saw this statistic that kind of stuck out to me, and it made me want to write an article about why millennials travel, because most people think it's because of Instagram, social media, because Susie from high school went here, then we have to go here, and that actually wasn't the case at all. Social media can help plan a trip, and it can inspire a trip, but someone's not traveling across the world for an Instagram picture, and I think a lot of people think that's why millennials travel, but it's not true.
that's not true. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's not just keeping up with the pack.
Nope.
are you familiar with I just heard the stat last week that millennials are not using vacation. Have you heard that at all?
No, because I used all my vacation already.
We know that. You were running around asking anybody on staff, you got extra?
Had to go to LA.
Yeah. No, I actually haven't heard that. But if that is the case, I would almost wonder if maybe because it's not an option. A lot of my friends have, I don't know how to explain it, and I don't want to rat on anyone's job, but they don't really get as much vacation time or necessarily PTO or whatever it is you want to call it, or if they're still working some hourly jobs don't always give you vacation time. It just is what it is. So I think that probably plays a part in it too. A lot of people aren't really getting full-time salary jobs as early as our parents did back in the day.
And there's some basic economics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Vacation.
School, you know what I mean? We just read something about how millennials live with their parents the longest. That makes complete sense. So I just think no, I don't want to say go a little slower, because even I didn't jump right into the workforce right away after college, but I think it's just time and getting that experience, and then once they are kind of set, then they do have that vacation and PTO and stuff that comes with a full salary job. I would say that's probably the biggest reason.
Tell our listeners, and again, we're referring to the October issue, 2019 of the War Cry, and for those that are regular listeners or you read the War Cry, you'll notice that we've made some changes to the center section of the War Cry, kind of just a different design look, different content. You have a very unique picture in that section. You want to?
Is it the front one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
So what I did is I saw this one spread in this one magazine that kind of caught my attention, the way it was laid out, and really if the only way this layout was going to work was if I could find really powerful pictures. And so what I did is I actually just kind of looked up travel Instagram accounts, people with like really high res images that I know like could provide them. And I just reached out to like 3 or 5 Instagram accounts. And I basically just said, I love this specific picture that you publish on this specific date. We'd love to share it, give you credit, you know, all that good stuff. And then send you some complimentary copies. Can we use it? And surprisingly, the 2 males out of the 5 people that I asked 2 males and 3 females. The 2 males responded to me. Never heard back from the females. But yeah, so they both responded and sent me the high res images. And this guy.
Well, on behalf of the male species.
Yeah.
Of course we'd reply.
It was just shocking.
We know how to respond.
But yeah, so Josh, I might butcher his last name, McNair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, McNair. He runs a website and like an Instagram account called California Through My Lens, and he had this picture of Salvation Mountain in like the desert of California. Most beautiful picture. It's got all the colors. The sun is setting. I mean, it just looked. I was like, it's called Salvation Mountain. Like, I need this picture, you know. I need it. Yeah. So he sent that, and he sent me a super high res image. So I knew that had to be the lead image for the design. And then the other guy was. His Instagram account is saying yeses. I hope I said that right. And his picture is of the Iceland Northern Lights.
Interesting.
Beautiful.
So do you think, Colonel, that in this travel phenomenon that people are searching for things, that quest is still prominent in people's lives?
Well, that can be part of it. Part of it can just be that enlightenment that people seek, especially when we're younger. You know, we're looking for truth, and when the era that we're in now is a little different than when you and I were teens, because we dealt with a lot of more absolutes, and now in a postmodern world, things are kind of like truth is what you make it, and it's, you know, kind of your experience. So there's a little bit of that. I'm kind of like now looking at, you know, kind of in my journey, I'm turning, I don't want to say the final turn, but I'm kind of, you know, on a racetrack, I'm kind of like on turn 4. And I realize that as I travel a lot in the job, this is the one thing that I always ask people is like, if you're going to be in this town only one time in your life, where should you have a meal? And it's interesting because you can go across the United States. I mean, there's a box restaurant. I won't name any brands because, you know, they could be possible
Popular
sponsors, or we don't want to get any kind of our legal team on our case. But you can find those kind of stores in almost every town in America. But you and I, the other night, we were in Dayton, and we went to dinner at just
what a great find!
Just a little.
That was.
You know, it was just a little family barbecue restaurant,
yeah.
And ended up. A woman came up and said she knew who we were, and I was just like,
she made maybe she saw you in an acting role somewhere.
I think so.
You know.
She thought we were cops,
right? Retired cops, yeah.
But you know, it's like getting out there, and you know. Elizabeth, what about you? I mean, what makes you travel to where you've studied abroad too.
I have. I spent my sophomore year of college in Italy. And so, I mean, I traveled because it was kind of built into the curriculum. I went to Pepperdine, and they really encouraged us to go abroad because it was just such a great learning experience and for us to like really grow up and see the world and cultures.
That's good. Well,
I
have a statistic.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay. Number.
Okay. So according to a study done by Robert, I don't know how to say his last name.
That's all right.
Retnikchit. Okay. 85% of millennials say that venturing out of their comfort zones and learning new things is a priority, right behind dining. That's 91%. Fun attractions at 90%, and sightseeing at 88%. More than 70% of millennials worldwide believe that travel is an important part of who they are as a person, and millennials even rank travel as more important than buying a home or paying off debt.
Wow.
It's really, really, really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting too about it, and getting back to the images that you had, we have not only the War Cry, but we have 3 other arms of publication here. We have our peer magazine, and we have Crest Books, and we also have Word and Deed And so we're kind of running in our publications, and soon we'll talk a little bit more about that in the November issue when we're merging the program department, the curriculum side, into our big publishing house that we're kind of doing here. It was interesting talking to Paul, the media specialist for Peer Magazine. He said that recently in an email to us, he said that it's I don't want to. I'm probably wording this differently, but it was more like the kind of the real or the earthy kind of picture, the natural kind of picture is what takes off on Instagram.
Less edited. It's more natural and true to what you actually see with your eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that resonates. A positive aspect of the millennial culture to me is what they really seek is an authentic experience.
Good word.
And whether it's just by, like, wow, in Italy, did you get to Florence?
I lived in Florence. Yeah, that's where I was.
Right. I love Florence, right?
Great city, yeah.
So, you were kind of connecting with that. But also, I think millennials, they respond to authenticity in leadership.
Sure.
And how, people aren't saying one thing or doing another thing. But if they are saying one thing and doing another thing, at least they're honest about it.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
And being honest in regards to, full disclosure or whatever.
Yeah. Transparency.
So it's not so much being caught up in titles and authority and status and I got to do X, Y, Z. It's they're willing to jump on the back of a hay wagon and go wherever. But I say do that when you're young, and you can when you do that. All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about travel and a little bit about our millennials.
Wait, I have one more thing.
Oh, one more thing.
Sorry.
Okay. And there's our smart millennials interrupting. Once again.
She knows what she wants to say. She's going to say it.
Okay, but also if you want to tell us why you travel, then and a chance to be featured in the War Cry, you should tag us on Facebook at SA War Cry or email us at war.cry@usn.salvationarmy.org and let us know why you travel.
I would kind of lay that out also to the baby boomers, because as more and more baby boomers are retiring and they're experiencing different things in their life, we would want to hear from them as well.
Anyone.
And so
let us know.
Tell us about your journeys and send us some of those earthy pictures. I took a couple pictures this summer. My wife and I had the privilege of staying with some friends at a lake in Upper Michigan, and I took some pictures and I was like, man, those are fantastic. And so I found out there's a way to take those pictures and put them onto canvas for real cheap.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Just like pennies on the dollar. It's really kind of cool where you can take something with our phones nowadays. So if you can send us that information, be a part of it. We want you to be a part of our discussion. Before we go to the October issue, again, thank you for joining us for the Fight for Good podcast. I think this is episode number 4 or 5.
Episode 4, I think.
Episode 4.
Yeah.
We are going to be expanding Fight for Good as we go along on some more standalone interviews is what we've kind of have in mind. Both Jeff and Michele, you guys have been really busy interviewing people, as Michele alluded to earlier. So we're kind of looking forward to that opportunity. And we've given a lot for Elizabeth, who is just kind of like Speedy Gonzalez through a lot of this stuff, which we really, really appreciate. But we're gonna break out some smaller kind of interview segments that folks will see along the way and they can listen to. I think it's kind of interesting. And we're having some new doors open for us and having the chance to talk to a wide range of people. One of the other unique features, I was just getting off the phone with somebody. One of the things that I'm very interested in, I've always been interested in the Salvation Army's emergency disaster work. But I'm particularly interested in the stories that come out of the EDS work. And once the main media has kind of moved out, we're approaching those kind of the backstory. I'm going out to Omaha to talk with some farmers. We'll probably run that either sometime in the year. But there's places in Nebraska and Missouri where farmers have lost everything, and they've lost their land. Their land now is a lake, and the water's not going away. And so we're looking for, what I'm saying, I guess, is we're looking for some different editorial content. We don't want to just put the traditional spin on something. Does that make sense, what I'm kind of saying there?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're looking, obviously, we do the hard work of editorial work, but we look to God to use our work for his purposes. Certainly drawing attention to the Army's long-standing relationship in communities, allowing them to provide ongoing support after a disaster, after the immediate news is long gone, is a key component. And the Army does that in so many places. It's a wonderful benefit. And, there's people, as you pointed out, who suffer long term. And it reminds me of what you referred to before, the importance of history. And I think technology can make everything seem so immediate that we do forget what happened yesterday, let alone 10 years ago. But the Army does not. The Army is there helping ongoing.
We're sending a team to Haiti in a couple of weeks to explore what happened in Haiti 10 years since.
10 years already.
Yeah.
Before we get back to the conversation with Colonel Foley, I just want to take a moment to talk about Peer Magazine. Peer is a Salvation Army youth publication for 16 to 22-year-olds. By addressing topics related to faith, community, and culture, Peer ignites a conversation that deepens biblical perspective, faith, and holy living. Peer is a monthly magazine that comes directly to your mailbox for free almost every month. Just visit peermag.org to subscribe. Again, that's peermag.org.
Well, let's talk about one last thing here today, and that's we picked this theme of life stages. And Jeff, is there anything overall in the October issue that you feel like our readers may want to, our listeners and readers would like to pay a little bit of attention to?
There's really one really captivating story in this issue. It's Me Reborn is the title, about a woman who went through really very trying times, ranging from abuse at home to drug abuse and other experiences, to really come out of it with a very, very strong faith. We did try in this issue to recognize that Christ is available to anyone, anytime, no matter what the age, and that those experiences that people have at different points of life are unique and enlightening. And we have several stories to that effect. One account, his recovery, a miracle, is about a young man, a boy who was in a terrible accident on a bike when a car hit his bike. And his father charts how from that accident he went into the medical profession and became a first responder and was even on site at 9/11 in New York City. So the point being that God weaves his tapestry through individual lives in different ways, and we celebrate that. And of course, you as our reading public, if you have those kind of accounts, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I think that's important. We talk about contributing a lot to our magazines, and some of the things that we produce are freelancers. People that just kind of write professionally, and they submit stuff. Some things that we write, it's because we're going after someone. I recently was talking to one of the commissions here, the territorial youth secretaries. I was encouraging the youth secretaries to help us by identifying millennial or Generation Z writers, the up and coming generations, and we of course have a mechanism now in place for us to produce some of those things. We're also producing them on the website.
You betcha.
Yeah, you're bringing in every so often a few articles that you kind of peruse through, and what do you think about this one? I think about that one, and which I really appreciate. Really, this life that we have is a very special life, and we often take it for granted. We struggle. We know that some of our readers are incarcerated and paying out the consequences of time versus crimes that they're committed. We also know that some of our readers get the magazine and they're shut in, or they're in rest homes, and the mind is still engaged. And though they're forgotten, we've kind of been hitting on those themes the last couple months here.
Yeah, I guess our part of inspiration was that Shakespeare's original quote about every life is a stage and every age plays its part, and it kind of alludes to the pomposity of middle age and the degradation of old age. We kind of wanted to offset that with a more optimistic view of life in the light of faith, no matter where you are.
Well, I wrote an article. Thank you for allowing me to write. I wrote a little article, and my inspiration came because Michele gave me a link to a really cool eye place, glasses. I thought it was really cool.
Oh, is that what it was? Because I thought it was funny that I was like, I wonder if he tried iBuy Direct. That's what I was wondering.
I did try it, and I got some. I thought they were really cool looking, And the problem was I left out the bifocal part of the so they were just like completely useless to me, but they look cool, and I put them on, and my wife said, no, those make you look a lot older. So I had to send them back because they made me look older, but also I couldn't see. I had glasses, that I couldn't see, and oftentimes, we kind of put off the fact that we all age, and with that aging is this sense of physical decline. The hair falls out, the eyesight goes weak, the memory loss, the memory muscle becomes a little harder. But part of that is part of life, right? And you can't delay. I mean, you can try to put off the inevitable, but you really can't. You can't delay that. I don't know how many times people said to me, "Why don't you try Rogaine?" And I'm like, I'm not. No, this is the way God made me, with a cul-de-sac part in my head, And the kids are going, "What's a cul-de-sac?" Well, let me tell you, kids. Do you know what a cul-de-sac is?
It's where you play basketball safely in the street.
Yeah. Look at that. Did you grow up on a cul-de-sac?
I didn't. I grew up on a block.
Okay, you grew up on a block.
Yeah.
But you kind of knew.
I knew what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So one place where I lived was in a cul-de-sac.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I was one of one.
Yeah. Well, I got the look.
But you make a very good point in your article, Colonel. Could you let us know what
that point is?
Lead to?
I made a good point. I was going to thank you, Jeff. Thank you for. What did you think my point was?
I don't want to steal your thunder.
I think the point is simple. Is that life isn't easy at times. I mean, things happen to us. I'm just kind of mindful of that because of a lot of times in particular in North American theology or church philosophy, it's like if you follow Jesus, everything is supposed to kind of fall into place. But I've sat with people who have held their dead children in their arms, in their hands. I've been with the people who have been diagnosed with liver cancer, and we've prayed and prayed and prayed, and they didn't get healed. And sometimes there's no easy answers. I mean, I noticed, Elizabeth, on one of the things that we're probably going to dedicate an issue down the road, because I think we need to talk about it a lot more, and that's just the whole mental health issue and trauma that's out there. I mean, the anxiety level right now, in particular for your generation, is so high, and people feel so hopeless. Like, it's kind of like, okay, these are the realities, but there is hope for us. And I think the hope comes when you just kind of not cave in, but you just embrace, embrace who you are and find what that purpose is. I think that gets back to originally what you were talking about too. Maybe the young generation is traveling to kind of find like a purpose, and what and I think when you travel, you're able to kind of get outside of yourself and kind of see life is a little broader, right?
Definitely, and people are, have common experiences. as well, despite differences. I was thinking also we were with the in Dayton, looking at that Kroc Center and seeing what the changes, the positive effects that Kroc Center is having on people's lives. So much of it is about development of inner character, even though the world might seem chaotic and desperately, with desperate problems that seem insurmountable.
And I would even argue and say it's not just necessarily Kroc Centers, but it's also Salvation Army Centers of Worship, the core, our institutions, our ARCs, even in our training colleges. I mean, we're promoting the holistic life, the holistic aspect of taking care of ourselves, getting out of our addictions, identifying that higher power in our lives, and doing something with that, making a difference. And we have a 150 plus year history of that, which I've only been a part of for a very short wisp of time, three and a half decades plus. But I think I don't know if I'm getting to the point of my article, which I try to keep it under 800 words, and I think I've here given like 7,000 blabbing out. But
I think a part of it reminds me of the current interest in mindfulness, and you ask people what their definition of mindfulness is, and they don't really know exactly what that means. But I think in your article you're saying be present, be empathetic, be true to who you are, be authentic, and be loving at the same time.
That's a takeaway that I get from that book by Amy Hollinsworth too.
Yeah, well, that's true.
On simple faith.
Yeah,
and be in that moment and engage with people that you meet.
And you do that, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I try to, but it's the thing. I mean, we could do a whole thing on Enneagrams and
I do
temperaments.
love that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I've been delving a little deeper in my Enneagram. I know I'm number 5 with wings out there at 7 and 9. But I know I'm actually an introvert, but I don't want to hide behind those stereotype monkey ears of how things kind of define you. I think that the whole thing is for us is embrace this life. And I pull up one of my favorite Psalms in the article, Psalm 90 verses 10, 11, 12 says, our days may come to 70 years or 80 if our strength endures, which is, today is my workout day. After work, I'm going to go work out, but I don't feel like it, but I'm going to, the strength goes away. Yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger, your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I always like that sense of intentionality. Realize that this may be the last podcast that I make. Not to be depressed or anything like that,
okay. But
we're not promised a tomorrow. And the scriptures remind us over and over and over. And sometimes we have those stories that come along, and boom, there it is as a reminder to us. But it's to be intentional and in your life stages to make the most.
So are you benefiting from this wisdom?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Wonderful.
From that great point.
Great point.
That great
took
point.
17 and a half minutes to get to, but
yeah.
I don't know. Well, what's on the future? We'll close with this. We want to talk just briefly. We've got a book ready to go to press. Do you want to mention anything about that?
We should mention too. I mean, we just are going to press with the Christmas War Cry. We get to celebrate Christmas, July, August, and September here in the department, and we hope that will be beneficial for the folks that are used in that tool, but with that ministry tool. But what were you talking about? I just got off on a tangent. Christmas Breakthrough.
Yes, the book.
We have a wonderful Advent devotional coming out by Commissioner Phil Needham, complete with photographs, a daily guide through these Advent and Epiphany seasons that can be of great benefit, most readable by an accomplished author.
And our latest issue of Word and Deed is about ready to be pressed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And we're shooting for a November 1 release on that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never a dull moment here. Well, we want to thank all of you for listening to this 4th episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we want you to tell your friends And if you've got 2 friends, tell them. If you got 1 friend, tell them. Tell people and download. And let's see our not our popularity, but our realm of influence in the podcast world grow. And if you like us, put those 5 stars. Right?
5 stars.
Leave a review. Do we have any reviews yet?
I don't think so, but it's because people are gathering their thoughts and want to be able to make the perfect comment.
Okay, who will be our first reviewer?
Who's it
Maybe
gonna
we'll put
be?
them. We'll acknowledge them. in our next podcast.
Oh, leave a review to be featured in the War Cry.
Yeah.
There we go. That's it.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Right.
See, this is how we brainstorm. We sit around with microphones in Elizabeth's stuffy office. Anyways, we want to thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. So thanks for listening to the Fight for Good podcast. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley.
I'm Jeff McDonald.
I'm Michele Katsaris.
Elizabeth Hamley.
You have a great day. God bless you.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.